It's D-Tech. We're back. On the last episode, we talked about VR, which I thought was a very exciting and entertaining episode, talking about the future possibilities. So if you missed that episode, you can go back and check it out. But this episode, we wanted to switch gears and talk about technology and education and how things are changing. We felt this is very relevant with everything that's going on and with the school year coming up.
Yeah, we're both educated.
Yes,
so
very educated.
We've both been to college to get more knowledge.
Yes, yeah.
Those are the only puns I know on education. But we both have degrees, and so we wanted to talk about it because there's some major shifts going on.
There are a lot of shifts going on. I mean, a lot of shifts have happened just in the last 10 years. We've talked about it a lot. I graduated high school in 2014, which was only 6 years ago.
Baby.
Yeah. And so, I mean, there's a lot of things that have changed. The majority of my assignments and tests were all on paper. And a lot of things have changed. I remember just a couple years after I graduated, I saw my friend's brother had iPads because they gave each student's iPads.
Wow. Yeah, we had old Macs. In fact, the first time I used the internet for school was in college. In 97, when we first started getting assignments to use the World Wide Web. It was called that back then. And so it's quite a different, it's quite a different system, different technology. It's just a different world.
It is a different world. Pretty much the only time I ever used a laptop or a computer or anything is if we were in the computer lab. And now it's common for junior high school kids to have, like we said, to have an iPad, have laptops, which I find very interesting because I remember teachers were always on our case about being on our phones. But I feel like with the iPads or the laptops, you can do everything, but probably more as far as distracting yourself.
Well, it's kind of forced teachers to be online because so much of their material and now the curriculum. Canvas is a program that my kids use in school, and so. But I remember when I was in 7th grade, we had these little Macs, these little apples, and they were black and white. And so I would go in there in between classes and I would draw little pictures in Mac Paint, I think it was. And so, it's definitely come a long ways. But even then, it was like in middle school, we had 1 hour, one class that was computer lab. So we had that too when I was young, and that was definitely my favorite time because I could draw pictures.
It wasn't my favorite time because my teacher was actually really mean.
Oh.
And, well, yeah, it was a huge Mac lab, and he always got on everyone's case if they said PC was better. He would just yell at us the whole time.
Oh, my gosh. Yeah, remember when everybody used to debate Windows and Apple? It was like, that was such a thing.
But I did think it was cool, though, because I didn't know, anyone with Macs. No one had MacBooks. No one had Mac desktop. Everyone had PC when I was coming up. So I thought that was really cool, really fancy.
Well, it used to be that it was a supplement, and Microsoft and other companies donated hugely to the education system. But now it's like, last year I just got my bachelor's degree in my mid-40s, completely online from Western Governors University. I also did a little time on University of Phoenix. And so that was completely self-directed, and it was all online. And there were some pros and cons. I think we're going to talk about the pros and cons to online versus traditional.
Yeah. Well, I think the pros and cons depend on who you are, though.
Yeah.
Yeah. What would you say were the pros of going all online?
Do it in my underwear. Do it any time of day or night. Unlike University of Phoenix, which had you were part of a group and you had to post 5 days a week, and everything was team-centered. Western Governors was self-directed, and essentially had a 6-month term, and you could take as many credits as you wanted. But I found that unless you're hugely self-disciplined, which I am in some areas, but in other areas, when I'd finish a term, I'd be tired, and so I'd take a break. Well, break would stretch out several weeks or even a month or two, and then it was like, oh, crud. I got to get going.
Yep.
And so there was nobody cracking the whip. There was a mentor I had to check in with every week, but I sometimes just fluff that, tell them what I was working on. But yeah, it required a high level of discipline, which is not a bad thing. It's just very different.
Right. Yeah.
So what about you?
Okay, so I had the complete opposite experience because I went all for I would say 4 years, but I was off and on for like 6 years. But my entire experience.
Me too.
Yeah. Yeah. As long as you get it done. But
Yep.
Anyway, so I had the whole in-person experience here at DSU, and I don't know, a lot has changed. Like even since high school, a lot changed because it's like it is in person, but a lot of it is integrated online as well. Because I was in the School of Business, and the majority of classes required that you did group projects.
Oh.
And so, in ways, I didn't like the online portions of school. Because we'd have these group projects, we do a lot of it online because you have the possibilities. You can use, Google Drive, Google Slides, Google Doc. You can use all these programs to where you guys can work on projects on your own time at home. But I think when you don't meet in person, the quality of the project gets worse. A lot of times it's one or two people that end up doing all the work. But I will say it is convenient, which is nice.
Yeah, if you're not the one who does all the work.
If you're not the one who does the work.
Saw that with the University of Phoenix. There was always one or two stalwarts in the group of 5 or 6 people, and they would get ticked. But because people would just do the very bare minimum. They'd post a few sentences when it was just like, could you be any lazier? Group member. The thing that was weird about, or not weird, it was interesting. For 6 years, 2013 to 2019, I was at Western Governors, and there was this constant re-releasing of the software, the portal that the students would use, your back end with your degree plan and all your course material. It just got better and better. And so I will give credit to Western Governors is that the software that they had us use when I started was really clunky and quite messy, and it was hard to remember where stuff was. By the end of it, it was just real slick. So universities are making investment in UI and UX and student experience because, I don't know, I wasted so much time trying to remember where stuff was in the beginning. So
right.
that was an improvement.
Yeah, one thing, so that's something that I didn't really like about it was that we did integrate it online because I do like that in-person collaboration. I think everyone, yeah, I like working as a team in person. There's not as many or any lapses in communication. But the thing I do like about the integrating online is when I was in high school, I really struggled with math. I'd be at home, I'd be struggling on an assignment. And I would look to the examples in the book, and I'd go through the example, and it seems really easy, but it would be completely different than the problem I was working on. And so with these online programs for math, they have like the Help Me Solve This tab that walks you step by step on a problem that's exactly like the one you're working on. And so a lot of times I wouldn't even go to class because many times the teacher would confuse me more than anything. So I would just learn doing my assignment.
Yeah.
Which was great.
Well, that was the thing about my experience. It was just like there's so much information online that I could always find the answer. But there were some professors my biggest drawback was I like people too. And online as a self-directed person, I just felt alone all the time except with my mentor. So when I did walk in my graduation ceremony, it was really kind of this lackluster kind of like, because I didn't know any of the thousands of students in that auditorium. It just was just me, and I took my family so my kids could see, hey, Dad finished it great. But it was like I didn't know anyone. There's no camaraderie there, and so it was just kind of a little bit, not depressing, but it was just a little bit of a letdown, so to speak.
I didn't walk, but I definitely see what you're saying. I think it'd be cool because throughout your college experience, people come and they go, but then there's like this same core people that you've seen throughout the years. So it's like, we finally did it. Like it's really cool. What I like about in-person class is that at least, because I imagine, or I've even taken online courses where I'm like struggling by myself and I just want to tear my hair out. But if I'm in class, I might have students that either understand it or we at least can struggle together.
Yeah. And University of Phoenix was a little better that way because you had people that you got to know. And then you would have some physical get-togethers. But with WGU self-directed, you never had to do anything. And so there wasn't a feeling of like school spirit. Like you had all this merchandise you could buy, but I'm like, I don't have any emotional ties to this owl, which is their mascot, and to the school. I'm just trying to get this degree. And so I don't know, like institutions, like they used to have this and they still do, the big the big universities and that. You have this school spirit, but mainly it's tied around sports, not academics. And I think if I had kind of gone through the trenches with other, flesh and blood people being together, I think it would have meant quite a bit more. I was glad for the experience, but I really miss the human interaction.
Yeah, I mean, it's all those people that you see every day that represents the school. Like when you think of the school you went to, you think of these great people that you also went with. But why is it that for some reason, it gives us comfort when you know someone else is struggling at the same thing?
Because we're mean humans. I don't know. No. There's commonality when you know someone's been through something. In fact, I had a breakfast this morning with a friend, and he'd been in recovery and been through a lot. So other people who've been through recovery can relate to that. And we were talking about that. So there's this feeling of we're in this together, and I know your struggles, man.
Yeah,
I know them. It's tough.
I mean, I feel like as humans, we've all got this sort of thing unless like we're really competitive at something. In most things, as long as we're not the worst, we're satisfied. You just don't want to be like the worst, the most behind out of a group.
Well, and it's not hard to be the second or third at the end.
Yeah, right.
Because I noticed with the universities, at least the two that they were very forgiving of missing deadlines and of being behind, because the focus in the marketing is working adults, and it's so hard to go to school, and they have commercials, and I'm like, yeah, but at some point, just fail people and make them pay to retake it, because I found with my kids in their schools, like the teachers now give them 3 or 4 chances to turn something in. Yeah, maybe reduce points, but I'm like, when I was in school, I remember one of my buddies got held back a grade. Yeah. Like they used to do that. They would fail you, and that was it. And so it was just like, it feels like with online, there's a little more mushiness around deadlines, or a lot more, and that. I don't know. The goal is to get people to graduation. I was telling you, you can find out the published percentage rates for institutions. Like I know with mine, I think 16% of people who start actually graduate. So all those universities' main focus is get people to graduation because it makes them look better, and it's tied to funding. So there's a lot of incentive to just keep the bar lower than it used to be. I mean, I think university used to just destroy you, and if you didn't make your deadlines on your assignments and you didn't pass the tests, you just failed.
You're SOL. Yeah. I mean, I think there should be kind of like a happy medium. I think it should be. I don't think they should be really harsh on people. Like I think they should take into consideration if they see this person is trying really hard and they're just struggling. But I mean, I think it's pretty obvious to see if someone's actually trying or if someone's just lazy and doesn't really care and just wants to pass.
No, I think we should kick them out in the cold.
We should. Yeah.
People have to keep. Well, there's. I think you make a good point, because they're trying to attract new students, which are adults. So if you're really hard on those students, they won't bring money to you. So it's kind of weird. Like the universities used to be these institutions of higher learning, and you just had to meet their standards. Well, another aspect to online school is cheating. Have you noticed this phenomenon? There are a few sites where you can get answers for everything.
Oh, yeah. I think anyone that's in school knows about mainly these 2 sites, Chegg and Quizlet, have saved my life on numerous occasions.
No, those are strictly academic sites, just offering information. They are not helping students cheat whatsoever. Actually, that's what their creators said.
Well, here's what I'll say. I don't think it's either the site or the student's fault for the cheating.
Really?
I'm putting this one on the professors, on the teachers.
Well, that means they use the same material term after term. Maybe they tweak it. But, yeah, when I would study for classes, I never cheated. I would never purchase answers, but I would go look online. And if you just Googled certain topics, Quizlet would always come up. So I would definitely look. Now, I will say a lot of times you had a similar question on the same concept, but I found that all the major online universities, all of their questions were out there. They just were. So it wasn't like you were even trying to cheat. It was just like, oh, it's like the book notes version of a novel. It's like there's everything. There's all the answers.
Yeah. A lot of my professors use the same exact questions that you find on Quizlet and Chegg.
Really?
On nearly every assignment. Nearly every question, nearly every assignment.
Same with my school. Like you'd see the exact same verbiage. And it was like, well, it was useful to double check your answers. So I would answer the questions first, but yeah, I would go look and see if I was doing it correctly because it was there. And like I said, I never paid for it. It was just online. And so some of the harder classes like finance and math, those kinds of classes, like I had to find a way to see if I was even close. And it just, I don't know.
Well, that was nice about the programs they would run, because in my math class, you have to keep doing it until you get it right.
Right.
Which was really nice. And that's something I will say about school today that is very nice, is you can, most of the time when you do homework, it will tell you if you're right or wrong. Like, it's nice to get that instant feedback, because I remember being super frustrated when I was in high school and I'm doing these math problems on paper and I have no idea what I'm doing. Well, I guess you did have the answers every odd number. It would show the answers in the back of the book. But on those even numbers, you would have no idea if you were right or wrong.
Yeah, and
it was really frustrating.
Some topics you're just not going to be competent. Like math was always a thing. Great at English and spelling, but math and science. Hated science, terrible at math, and it just was the way it was. And so we had books and paper. In fact, speaking of books and paper, the old system of educators being the gatekeepers of knowledge, professors, like it used to be, you had your professors, which were the preeminent authorities and amazing teachers, or boring teachers, whatever. They were just the teachers. And then you had just traditional textbooks. Your professor was always the smartest person you knew back in the day. I mean, I went to college in the 90s, and I can say that my educators were the most versed in the classroom. And it was about education, and it was a lot harder. But now it's like students expect so much beyond just an education. They want so much more social stuff.
Yeah, I agree.
I mean, you just came out of a university, so I don't know. It's just that I think it's not even an insidious thing. It's just that the internet and the dissemination of knowledge has taken away a lot of the pomp and circumstance that educators used to have, because people can literally go online to sites like Skillshare or lynda.com, Khan Academy. In fact, I had several classes where these well-known sites were part of the actual assignment. Go to lynda.com, go to Skillshare. Like, they literally would have us go get information on sites that I didn't need to be in college to go get that same information.
Yeah, no.
So
I mean, we talked about this a little bit before, but it's almost as if the teacher's just there to present the information that they found on the internet that we also could have found, but they're just kind of a guide to answer any questions that we have along the way.
Yeah, so I would think that their focus now is more being a good guide or being energetic, being cool. I see so much in the media about professors that I'm like, their position's the same, but the world is completely changed around them. And so that's what technology does. It shifts everything. We were talking about something we called the degree pipeline. So many people have degrees now. I read, Skyler, that 1 in 4 U.S. adults has a bachelor's degree. So that in education inflation, it's like a master's is what a bachelor's used to be, a bachelor's, or vice versa. A master's is now a bachelor's equivalent in value. So it's just the value's gone down.
Yeah, I mean, it just makes you wonder when it's going to get to the point that employers are no longer worried about that degree and more worried about the experience.
Have you seen that? Like, I've watched business gurus, people that are successful, and say they'd much rather take someone who had a lot of grit and willingness to work hard, that's not very talented or educated, over someone who has a big degree but is not motivated.
Yeah, and I think that's already a thing, but no one's talking about it.
Well, we are.
We're talking about it right now.
We're way ahead.
But no,
we're the future.
But the majority of professors aren't going to tell you that. They want you to come to school.
Well, and so much of what their success as an institution relies on is enrollment, graduation. So it's the beginning and the end. So their funding and everything is tied to that. And so it seems like the old model of go to school, get a degree, get a good job, work till retirement, that's so outdated now, partly because of technology. It's not because it was a scheme per se. It just doesn't work anymore. Mm-hmm. We're too mobile.
Right. Yeah, I agree. I think it's valuable to have baseline knowledge of a lot of different things, but I think I think that should be left in high school. I think once you're past high school, you should worry about specialization so you can be great at something. So you can really offer value to a company.
Yeah, I mean, that's what an owner wants to see is somebody, even if they don't have the experience, I can train them, but they have the work ethic. And growing up on a farm, no matter how modern this world gets or advanced technologically, it's like if someone is willing to work hard, I can put them in any position and they'll probably do well, unless it's highly specialized. Like I can't make someone with a good ethic be a surgeon. There has to be training.
Yeah, I mean, that's why you can make the argument that someone might want to hire someone with less education than someone with a master's, because they're probably easier. There's maybe a little less ego there, and they're easier to be taught.
Oh, I'll tell you, I had this experience at one company a few years ago where someone was over or wanted to be over a department, and this person was so angry because they couldn't get the position because somebody else in the company had a degree, and so the person that ran the company had favored the degree holder, and it caused this actual big ruckus. There was this big meeting, and people were getting angry because they're like, "I do a great job. Why can't I have it?" And the owner was like, "Well, this person has debt from college and has shown me they can complete something." But then it wasn't a logical argument because that person that wanted that position was doing a great job. And so it's kind of now I think these conflicts are really coming to bear in companies. Just that's just my own perception. But honestly, I think if you got two great people and one has a degree, but they're both great, who do you choose? You choose Skyler because he's the man and he has a degree, or
I think it totally depends on the situation. Because there could be someone with a degree that has some debt, but there can also be this other guy who also works really hard, but he has a big family that he has to take care of.
Oh, I tell you, politics in a company is hard because there's a lot of need in all of your employees. But when they come with that debt attached, most of them with a degree, there's also the mindset. You said someone has a master's has a mindset, I'm more valuable because I completed school.
Yeah.
Which, is that always true?
I don't always think that's true.
No, I don't either.
This is what I will say. I think through the course of my college career, I would say I learned more how to pass a class than learn about these subjects.
And there's some value there, but how to apply that to the job, I don't know. In fact, my bachelor's was in marketing management because I'm in marketing. So I kind of went to school in what I already do, but business finance accounts classes were the most valuable. So this thing I actually got a degree in, the classes around it, like how to manage a marketing firm, that's actually was more valuable. So I was like, I didn't really up my skills as much as I learned how to be better at business. So I would say that's valuable.
I would also say another valuable skill is learning, because in learning how to pass a class, you're learning how to cater to the person you're handing in your assignments to.
Yes.
Which I think is valuable anywhere you go in life.
Huh. I never thought about that. Yeah. Tailoring it to the person that you've got to pass with,
or whoever you have to impress, really. Yeah.
So that could be good or bad.
Yeah. It is true. But
I guess if that helps you learn how to impress a boss outside of education, then yeah, for sure.
Okay, well, I think that's a great stopping point, and now we're going to take a little break, and we're going to go into some tech trivia.
That's right, Skyler. We've got today's tech trivia. We got 3 tech questions for you. Now, what you do is you send us an email, trivia@infowest.com. Give us the 3 answers, and you'll be entered automatically into our awesome giveaway. Okay, here are the 3 questions. Question number 1. The original NES, or Nintendo Entertainment System, 8-bit processor was manufactured by whom? Texas Instruments, Panasonic, Xerox, or Ryko? All right, question number 2. Before approaching Apple, iPod creator Tony Fadell had his idea rejected by these 2 companies: Real Networks and Philips, Toshiba and Microsoft, Panasonic and Seagate, Yahoo and Sony. Which of those 2 pairings rejected Tony Fadell's iPod idea? And question number 3. What was the first website to display banner ads? Was it Lycos.com, MTV.com, Telegraph.co.uk, or Hotwired.com. So those are your 3 tech trivia questions. Once again, send your answers to tech@infowest.com to be entered into our drawings and win.
We're back. In the first segment, we talked about how technology has changed education up to this point. Now in the second segment, we want to talk about where it is headed. We are Discover Tech, so we want to talk about the future.
The future of technology and just education overall. I studied Benjamin Franklin, and he was in the apprentice model. The apprentice model was you chose your profession. His was printing. Of course, he became the postmaster general eventually, and one of the wealthiest, if not the wealthiest, Americans. But basically, he worked with his uncle for several years, learned the print trade, and then the focus was to go off on your own and to be an owner. And so I see in the future, this is just conjecture, of course, but I see us returning to more of a mentor-apprentice model where we utilize technology, virtual and augmented reality to supplement real-world experience. We looked at quite a few articles on this where they think that the personal touch, how to actually work in the world, has got to be hands-on and pressing the flesh, being with people. But then all of the education and data learning around it will be provided not only remotely through those technologies, but also through AI and other things.
I think public universities, private universities can always be valuable for someone that doesn't know exactly what they want to do and they're just kind of trying to figure it out. Yeah. But I think if you know what you want to do, like who would you prefer to go through? The guy that's just been teaching for the past 30 years or the guy that has been doing what you want to do for the past 30 years?
Oh, yeah. We talked about that earlier. Like, I would respect the professors in the university. And in the first segment, we talked about there's some esteem loss on professors just because the knowledge is all there. They're really not gatekeepers anymore of education. And so, but I had professors in my school when they had worked for a Fortune 500 company or been an accountant there, or they had opened several businesses, they had massive success on their resume, I would just my ears would perk up and I'd take that class more seriously because I'm like, these guys did it. They actually did it, and now they're teaching. They're not going into teaching right out of the gate as a profession, making everything theoretical. It's like, no, I did this. So I'd respect that.
Well, I had a couple of professors that I had a great experience taking their courses with because I knew they had a lot of experience. Like there's one he was my entrepreneurship professor and he has multiple businesses. So I took him a lot more serious. Shout out Chris Brown. But yeah, like I took him a lot more seriously. I feel like eventually that's like the path I want to go down. So I really enjoyed that. And I listened a lot more intently rather than just browsing the web on my laptop.
Well, and I think we can stereotype professors, but there are a lot of great ones. Some of the ones I had at Western Governors were great. Others I didn't mesh with as well, partly personality, but also the validity factor. Did you produce in the industry that you're teaching on? That's so important to me because, like, I want to hear not just from business gurus because they're out there to sell you a product a lot of times. No, when you're paying it to be educated, the educator's there just to disseminate knowledge, and I like many of my classes were awesome.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. For the most part, I had a great experience, but in the world of technology, it's even more convenient to do an apprenticeship. You pretty much can create your own apprenticeship. You know, back in the day, you'd have to, or like not even in the day, but like 10 years ago, if you want an apprenticeship, you got to put in that footwork to actually meet someone and ask to be their apprentice. But now with these apps like Skillshare, you can go and pretty much make your own apprenticeship. You don't even have to talk to anybody, and you can find these courses geared toward what you want to do.
Well, and honestly, does technology really take away someone's drive or search for fulfillment? Like, I think of a Steve Jobs is such a cliche example, but he was obsessed. And so that obsession with whatever your goal is, to me, I don't care what AI does or these technologies do, you'll always have a leg up on everyone if you're obsessed about something. And so that I think that's the critical human element, that it don't matter if you go to college or if you just go straight into industry. You got to have that drive and obsession about something to really be successful.
Absolutely. That's what it's about. But I think what's really cool about apps like Skillshare as well is you could even take an apprenticeship from someone that's been in the business for the past 20 years, but they might be a little outdated themselves. So you can take this apprenticeship with someone that has done it, has been there, but you can also, on the side, you can take these online courses to bring you up to speed so you're ready to do that in today's climate.
Absolutely. And it makes you wonder, what is the future for traditional universities? I don't think they'll go away, but we looked at several articles that talked about the enrollments for traditional universities are going down steeply compared to the history of the last 30, 40 years. Like, they're just dropping because I think there's so many pressures on traditional universities of what is the value return for the dollars, tens of thousands of dollars of debt. A lot of students get out. And that's why I waited till my 40s to get a degree. It's like now it's like, how are they going to combat that just huge overhead and stay relevant at the same time? That's a real challenge for them. So what does the future look like for them?
Well, I think it was really interesting because they said going into the spring semester of 2020 that enrollment had already went down. So now I'm really fascinated to find out how coronavirus will affect this. They're not even 100% sure how. Most of these universities aren't even sure how they're going to go about it. If they're going to do, some in person, some online.
Earlier, you were mentioning that universities are running issues with foreign students who get educational visas to come to America. If they continue the quarantine and they don't let in foreign students, then they might have to at least go half time on site and half time remote, or they'll have to send them back.
ICE made a statement that they would send foreign students back if classes continue to be all online. So I don't know this to be fact, but I have heard around the grapevine that they're pushing to get students back in the classroom so that doesn't happen.
Well, I can see how a university wouldn't want a huge chunk of its populace to have to be vacated.
Ship back.
So that's part of the future. Like, how will universities actually handle these conditions, which are kind of out of their control?
I'm just interested to see how quarantine and coronavirus is going to affect just the population in general. Not even necessarily that schools are going to lose students or that less kids are going to enroll in college, but where they're going to go. A lot of sites are reporting that many students are going to go back to their home states and go to the college that's closest to home or to their parents' house.
Interesting. Yeah, that'll shift everything. I mean, there's so much fear around the future, and I don't have the fear, but I do feel like it is going to fundamentally change what people do for career, what they do for education. Like, they'll just adjust to the conditions. So universities are kind of in the middle of all that.
Well, and I had read on a couple different websites that they are reporting that kids are going to start enrolling in more community colleges and cheaper colleges, and so private schools are going to take a major hit.
Well, you see a lot of STEM program focus for youth, getting into the STEM fields, but you also see a focus on technical centers. Like, we have one locally where it's STEM and trades. So it's like just very hands-on useful skills sets, where the traditional university, you have to take all these prerequisite classes. You just get this glut of knowledge that you never will use. I mean, it's great you can pass those classes, but yeah, it's more of a focus on the practical, like useful skills, whether digital or in reality. These technologies, Skyler, are making it so we can kind of throw off the old system. And speaking of the old system in the future, I see that another shock to the education system is what I call, I think, a second enlightenment, where we are literally shaving off all of the bulkiness of the past. Like, you don't need to go to a physical building anymore to get educated. You don't need a textbook. You don't need a professor, although they can be very helpful and useful. We see a lot of issues on college campuses around free speech, a lot of social turmoil there, a lot of activism. Masks are an issue that have come up in K through 12 now, where they're going to mandate masks in our state. And so what I see is, I think that society's moving away from bulkiness to just streamlining everything, because technology allows you to do that. So I think you'll see more and more homeschooling organizations pop up. I think you'll see more community schools where it's all online voluntary stuff.
And do you think coronavirus pushed a lot of this?
Yeah. It pushed us all home.
I keep thinking about this, and I think it's totally disrupted the flow. Because like for so long, we've just kind of been in the same cycle. Like our economy has been great for like a long time. So we've just kind of been, we didn't really question what we were doing. Like it all just, happy-go-lucky, things just kept going with the flow. But then we're stuck in our house for a while. And I think we stopped thinking about the small worldly problems we had before. And now we start more thinking of like survival.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, having grown up in the 80s and 90s, at the time it seemed scary because there was all these scares about AIDS and there was the Cold War. I remember that well, the fall of the Berlin Wall. But then you got into the 90s and technology really started to dominate. There was the crash of the internet bubble. I remember that so well. And then there was a new war, and then it just, like when technology really picked up with e-commerce and with social media, it just seems like everything's moving so fast that I think people are going to start disconnecting from a lot of the technological habits they have. I think they're going to start to simplify, because if we're enlightened, we're going to start to push away things. Like there's so much information, it's overwhelming. I feel bombarded. Like I literally had 5 people yesterday that were waiting on replies through Messenger, text, email, phone messages, and I just last night I got to bed around 11:30, and I was like, all this technology is complicating things, even though it's so convenient.
Oh yeah. Well, I mean, I thought a lot because when I was stuck at the house for 2 weeks, I was thinking about what is necessary. I was like, are all these things I've been worrying about, like, do they matter? Like, it really just like flipped my world upside down. Like my worries completely changed.
Sure.
What I've been worried about for so long, and yeah, like, is all that necessary? I mean, I've had girlfriends in the past where I'm texting them and Snapchat messaging them at the same time, having 2 different conversations at once.
Well, I think as we move forward, there's going to be one thing I noticed when there's a pandemic of any type, not just disease, but there's this instant pushback online of people questioning the narrative, like the news media. And so I feel like as we move forward, people are going to continue to question. And I think overall that's a great thing. Shouldn't we be educated? Shouldn't we question what we're told? College used to be about teaching people how to think, and nor it feels like teaching people what to think. And so I think that internet and technology, virtual reality, all these technologies are really moving us forward to a higher level of existence. I know that sounds kumbaya, but I really do. I feel like it's a singularity that's going to just be of benefit eventually. But it's convulsing us as a society.
Right. Well, I think college is one of those things that has been a go with the flow kind of thing. It's like, most people, their parents say, go to school, it's fine, whatever. And especially as like a young kid, you don't really think about it. You don't think about student loans because that's for down the line.
Yeah.
After you get your degree and you get this nice job where you're rich, like that's not going to matter. But and we've all known for the longest time that you can't file for bankruptcy on student loans. Even when you die, someone has to take care of it. And so this is one of those things that stopped that flow and gave us time to kind of think about that. Like, is that a wise investment? I'm not saying it is. I'm not saying it isn't. We both went to school.
Well, what about Skillshare? Like, what's a membership there every month? A few bucks? You can get everything on one website that you could get at any university. Knowledge-wise, the data, it's all there. There's, thousands of courses on anything you can think of. Like I went to school for design, multimedia, web design, all that. Anything you would want to learn, and all the tools are there for a few bucks a month, where you can pay thousands a term just to go learn it at a college, and it may not be up to date there.
Well, you can also shave the fat as well, because you're not going to pick courses on Skillshare that you're not interested in. You're going to pick the courses that you're actually interested in and you want to learn. So you'll be much more engaged in those courses.
Absolutely. Yeah, you'll follow your passion, which is what we've heard from our self-help gurus and books for decades, and now it's like technology really levels that playing field. So I expect in the future we're going to see major disruption in the educational field, and it's going to be painful for a lot of people because the old narrative of go to school, get a degree, get a job, it just isn't necessary anymore. It doesn't mean that schools aren't useful, but they're really going to have to pivot and trim the fat, like you said.
Right. And I think it's going to be really scary for a lot of people that, a lot of people have ever known is that traditional path, go to high school, go to college, get a job. And now the path could go like just all over the place.
It does go like that.
And no matter what you do, it still will. Even going to college, you still will have a crazy path.
You will. And really, you got to be adept and mobile. And that's no pun. Like, really, you have to be mobile and stay relevant. Relevancy is something that everybody values now in their search terms. It's like the most relevant results in the search engine. Well, that's really where education is. Is it relevant? And how will it stay relevant? And I think it's exciting. Technology,
it is exciting.
We've got great things on the horizon.
No, yeah, I totally agree, which can be a good stopping point on this episode.
I think so.
Yeah, that sounded like the perfect ending to me. So we really hope you enjoyed this episode of Discover Tech. If you did, please give us a 5-star rating and a nice review, whether you're listening to us on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, YouTube, you name it. Until next time.
The future is here.